Hello and welcome to the show. I'm a firm believer that when we learn a specific skill set that can benefit others, we can teach it, coach it, if you will. That's true of my guest, Erica Carrico. She left her high-paying travel the world job to become a money and marketing coach, teaching others how to achieve financial freedom. Thank you for being here, Erica.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
You are the first coach of your kind. And even though you are a different type of coach, or you have a different strategy, I should say, that I've had on the show. And I look forward to talking about all aspects because a lot of people have misconceptions. And I want to demystify the whole coaching industry in this conversation. But really, let's start with your story and what brought you to coaching. I know that you were in a corporate job and you had a lot of demands placed on you. And at some point, something shifted for you. You had a big thing happen in your life.
Yeah, I always knew, even when I was a little girl, that I wanted to make a difference in the world. And I always felt like I was here for something different. And after I graduated from college, I spent a year backpacking around Europe and was just trying to figure out, all of my friends were getting jobs and they were all landing these careers and, getting married and having babies. And here I was, kind of this black sheep. But I ended up moving into corporate recruitment, and I felt like, well, this is kind of perfect because one, I'm helping people. I don't know what I want to do, but I can help other people figure out what they want to do and move them into jobs. That was something that, I kind of fell into, but took me pretty far. I ended up in Australia, working in Sydney, and was recruiting in financial services in sales and marketing with high-level execs. And I was flying to places like Hong Kong, Singapore, and kind of living the dream, I suppose, from the outside looking in. I was earning great money. I was living in Australia. My life just from the outside looked pretty incredible. And I think this is very typical of at least a lot of women that I've worked with, that it doesn't matter really what it looks like or appears like on the outside. It's really what's going on the inside that I think is the most important part. And I was destroyed and miserable and anxious and depressed and alone and lost and broken and all of the things. And it was a sort of a challenging, I guess, experience for me. Long story short, I ended up seeing a life coach at that time. This was like way back in 2009. And I saw a life coach.
Or it was the deal that it is now in social media.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. And I had always been curious about life coaching, just kind of like intuitively curious about it. And a friend of mine in Sydney was getting her certification and she needed a practice client. And I was like, oh, sign me up. I am in this. I really need help right now. And I know that I am not living the life that I was meant for. I was earning millions of dollars for a company that had millions of dollars. And honestly, I was working 12 to 15 hours a day. I felt like my life was pointless. I was going nowhere.
That was my question, because you had an idea of what you wanted your life to look like.
Right.
And all of those things were adding up to what you had envisioned for yourself.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so I knew, working with her, I was going to get really clear. I didn't know what it was going to entail, I guess. But through working with her, I got really clear that what I was doing wasn't the life that I wanted. And unless I did something different, my life was going to stay on that trajectory. And so I didn't have kids yet. And the financial crash was happening in Australia a year later than it happened here. And I realized through working with her that I wanted to quit my job. And I went traveling for a year through third world countries and did some volunteering and spent 6 months in Africa. And I realized I would never go back to corporate in that time.
So you took a gap year in between when you were working and then when you went into coaching. So a lot of people think about leaving that corporate job. And was that a difficult decision for you? Or did you, when you went into this coaching process, is that where you thought you'd end up? Is that what you wanted clarity about? Or were there other things that just led to that clarity?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is after, when I was on that trip, I got engaged to my fiance, and who I ended up marrying later. And I told him that I felt like I wanted to move into life coaching. And he was like, "That there's no money in that. We're getting ready to start a family. There's no way you can start your business. This is ridiculous. You need a job." And so I was like, okay, he's right. I need to do something safe and secure. I need a job. So I did the safe thing and I took out a $60,000 loan to get a master's degree so that I could go and be the executive director of a not-for-profit organization. So I
You
felt
wanted the fulfillment of working in the nonprofit world. You hadn't yet figured out that you could fund your own life and then volunteer, right?
exactly. Yep, exactly. And so I took out a $60,000 loan and justified it that I'm going to be earning $29,000 a year. That's all I was earning as the ED of a not-for-profit. But I justified it because I was making a difference and I felt a lot better about myself. So I was like halfway there. But, fast forward 5 years and I was 36 years old. My marriage was completely falling apart. I had a baby. I had a toddler. I was the executive director of a not-for-profit organization earning $29,000 a year. And again, I was miserable. I was building someone else's dream. I was making a difference in the world, but I was broke. I was building someone else's dream. I was being told where to be and when to be there and what to talk about. And it was like, I was making a difference in people's lives, but I was in the exact same situation as I was in corporate. And that was when I was diagnosed with kidney cancer.
And that, I don't know that there's many other things besides a health crisis diagnosis that puts things in perspective more quickly. You are in one space in one moment, and your life is literally changed in the next, and there's no going back. There's no changing that. It's not anything that you can quickly fix. It is something hopefully you can recover from, but it takes a process. And I say too, and we'll get into this a bit later, we all have a vision for ourselves. So for some people working in a nonprofit world and knowing when to be there, what to do, and all of those things, that is the dream for them. And that's amazing. But for some others, like yourself, you had a different vision for yourself. So if it's not in alignment with what you saw for yourself, no matter how amazing it is, some people would say the job you were doing in Australia and the money you were making and the traveling you were doing is their dream, but it wasn't your dream. Neither one of those spectrums from one end to the other were your dream.
Yep.
So the cancer diagnosis, how much did that impact your next move?
Well, that was everything for me because at that point, kidney cancer, they had never seen it in that there was 7 different urologists in the practice that I went to. And they were like, we've never seen this in a woman, especially your age. We don't know why this happened. And hearing all of that, I was like, okay, if my body created this, there's a reason. And I started, really taking a spiritual, emotional, physical journey to healing. And, kidneys are all about toxicity and releasing toxins from the body. And I was so angry and just irritated and out of alignment and upset with my life. And it was like this constant, just like eating at me from the inside. And I couldn't take it anymore. I think my body was just like, literally, that was the 2x4 over the head that was, telling me if you don't wake up now, you're going to die. And for me, that was a pivotal point of, okay, how I've been living my life now has absolutely not been working. And in fact, it's killing me. And so I took the oath to myself that I will do everything I can to let go of everything in my life that does not feel aligned to me anymore. And I'm only ever going to build it back up with things that does. And that meant to me getting my life coaching certification, regardless of what anybody else said. I started my business on the side. I worked really hard to get my business to where I could leave my marriage and financially support myself. I moved. I really let go of a lot in my life. My friend circle completely changed as well. Everything about my life changed in that moment.
Well, I think that illness is a knock on the door, and you can answer it the first time or the second and third. It gets louder and louder, and it shows up in different forms in your life. I truly believe that. I've experienced it firsthand. I've witnessed it firsthand. And so for you to have answered the call and for it to work out the way that it has is part of why I wanted you to share your story on the show, why I wanted to have you here. So let's take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about financial freedom and what you teach about it and how we talk about it looks different to different people, but also just the strategies involved in how you go about your business. So we'll take a break and we'll be back in just a moment. We are back talking with Erica Carrico, and let's talk about, we were talking about financial freedom and what it looked like for you. And you've, you've now been diagnosed with cancer. You've changed your life in a lot of ways, and you have some plans in place. You're strategizing what your life's going to look like. You've answered the call, the first knock on the door of illness. And what was the next move for you? And let's talk about coaching in general. A lot of times people think, who does she think she is? Her life's a mess. How can she be coaching anyone right now? And I don't think it's any different than a therapist who's giving advice, but maybe not taking their own.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that first, and then let's move into the financial freedom piece. So yes, I agree with that. And I actually help coaches to build their business, along with many other different kinds of service, like service-based entrepreneurs, healthcare practitioners, that kind of thing. But what I always tell people is coaching is, very different than therapy, in that therapy is kind of working to dig up past problems and look at different, issues, and really working to heal through that. Whereas any kind of coaching, regardless of what industry you're working in, whether that's health or relationships or business, it's very forward focused. How can I help you to move forward in this area? What's your vision around, your marriage, or how do you see your relationships, or what's your business income goal? And a coach is going to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. And I love your point about, who is she? Her life was completely falling apart, and now she's going to be this life coach. People usually start, like, they'll go through a coaching certification process. And, you end up specializing 9 times out of 10. So because I had 12 years of recruitment experience, it was a natural fit for me to move into building a business as a career coach. So I actually got a life coaching certification, a career coaching certification, and then moved into using my 12 years of experience to build my heart-centered career coaching business. So you're usually not starting from scratch. You're usually pulling a lot of your expertise, and how can I use that to start my new coaching business?
It's like writing, you write what you know.
Yes. Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. If I were like getting a divorce and trying to relationship coach, now that's a whole nother story, right? That's a different, we have to be careful around things like that. But
well, and let's talk about coaching and coming into the business, because now you could, like we said at the beginning, you can coach anything, right? You can have a specialty, you can focus on one certain area of even a bigger category and just kind of focus down, focus down, focus down. You decided what you were coaching, what you wanted to coach. You had some resistance from your husband. How did you overcome the resistance from him and other people, and even your own self-talk, to take the next steps to start to get you where you are today?
Honestly, it was one of those things where I had to put the blinders on and put the earplugs in and just listen to my own intuition and really follow my own inner voice. And I knew that that was something that was calling me, and that I had to give it a shot, regardless of what it meant, And remember, I didn't know how long I had to live. I could live a year, I could live 2 years. And I just knew that I had to spend the rest of my life listening to me and not everybody else, because at that point I had built my life based on everybody else's expectations and societal expectations, and that was killing me. And so I had to do things different. And my heart was telling me to look into coaching, and that's what I did.
And during that time, somewhere along that timeline, you did leave your marriage.
Good. So basically, my first goal inside of my business was I need to replace my salary, which was like $2,500 a month at the time. And so I did that. And then it was like, okay, this is working. I need to get to $5,000 a month. And I did that. And it was like, okay, if I need to leave my marriage, I need to get to $10,000 a month. And I did. And it was like, okay. All of a sudden, like, that was it. I was ready to go and ready to leave my marriage, because at that point I knew that I could support my kids, and I did not want to take child support. I did not want any money from him. I did not want anything from him. I wanted to do this all on my own. And that was the number I felt I needed to get to. And of course, have since now gone on and built a multi-million-dollar company. And yeah, the sky's the limit.
The sky is the limit. I want to take a break, and when we come back, I want to talk specifically about your strategies. There are so many. There are so many options of how people could go about any one thing in the coaching world, in the course creator world, in a world that I've been paying a lot more attention to over the last couple of years. And I have watched my share of webinars and participated in my share of mini courses. And is it an email list? Is it ads? Is it whatever? And somehow through all of the heaps depths of information I've dived into over the years, over the months, I should say, and even most recent weeks. You are the one I've invited to the show because I feel like you've taken these things that have happened and these lessons that you've learned, and you're able to really have a clear focus. And your intent is, I think, what inspires me about you, in that you do want to make a change in the world, and we're incremental about it. Even just the money part, 2,500, then 5,000, then 10,000. We start to think about a goal and we think this far out, when really we just have to start here and then get bigger and bigger. Whatever that is, it doesn't have to be attached to money, right? It doesn't have to be attached to money. It's the steps that you took along the way. So let's take a break, and I want to talk about your specific strategies. You've been featured in Forbes, Business Traveler, New York Weekly, all the things. So you know of what you speak, and we'll be back with more of it in just a moment. We are back talking with Erica. So we keep teasing about financial freedom, and we're getting to that piece. And we've been talking a lot about what financial freedom looks like to you. But let's talk about it in terms of your coaching and your idea of it in terms of business. So strategy. Your strategy is different than most I've researched. And I'll let you describe what that looks like for your business and for the businesses that you help grow.
Yeah. So the strategy that I kind of stumbled across it myself, and was really recognizing, like, wow, once I got out there, I was like going to have a website and then get on social media, and, all these customers were going to start coming to me as clients. And that 1,000,000% did not happen. And I was really taken aback, and I was like, wow, after 6 months of posting endlessly on social media, I hadn't had a single client yet. And I knew that if I wanted to get to 2,500 a month was my first goal, like we talked about, I was going to have to do something different, because obviously that wasn't working. And so, long story short, the strategy that I teach is it's really I call it an external marketing strategy. So just to give you a bit of an insight quickly, external marketing are marketing tactics that are going to get you in front of new audiences, new eyeballs, new potential clients. Whereas internal marketing are tactics that are designed to keep in touch and make offers to your existing community or your existing audience. Okay, so external marketing are things like speaking engagements, holding workshops, like in conjunction with other organizations, getting yourself on podcasts, getting published in the media. Like you can see, I've got Forbes, New York Times, like you mentioned earlier. These are all getting me in front of people who would never in a million years find me on social media and happen to resonate with me and maybe follow me. Whereas like internal marketing, social media, you're literally posting content. And what I find is people put a lot of time and energy into creating this amazing content on social media, and nobody's even buying, nobody's clicking, no one's buying. And there's a lot of reasons why, but one of the main ones is that you're constantly posting all of this content to the same audience over and over and over and over again. Because unless you're doing something every single month to bring in a ton of new followers, a ton of new leads, you're only going to be posting to the same people. And that's where the hamster wheel and the rat race come into play. And it just doesn't work. You might have a couple of sales from your current audience, but only 1% will ever actually buy from you. So once you've had a couple, you've already tapped them out. And so people sit there and try and figure out, what can they offer different to the same people? But how about we offer the same thing, but just increase our audience? And that's what I do. I help people flip to 80% of what they're doing in their business is external marketing. And that's when the game changes.
Well, the reason why I felt the connection to, I think, what you do is, years ago, I had started this pillow company and I didn't have money for advertising. And I thought, well, if I can get my pillow on like a hit TV show, then that'll justify building a website and having these custom orders. It'll get me in magazines. It'll get me on TV telling this story. That there were other facets of my story, but also this element of getting, having these products on a TV show. So I went for the sky's the limit. I went for the Friends show. And
oh my gosh, well done.
I started there, and the set decorator said yes. And that E that you see on Friends, I made that in my dining room.
Oh, that's amazing.
And it changed everything. Yeah, it changed everything. In Style magazine, we were there. Sales quadrupled for 4 months. Oprah Radio, Rachel Ray show, all those things. But it's interesting because it really speaks to audience though too, because there were some things I was involved in. I thought, oh, it's going to be huge. And then others I didn't expect would be as huge. So even then, you just got to keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. And so I also like, though, that the way that you go about it too, because there you are out there making a difference. Maybe someone will buy something from you, maybe they won't, but at least you're on your own stage, or you're using your own voice, or you're a guest on this podcast, sharing what you know is true, just like you're sharing it here today. And I think that goes a long way, because we don't always, so I think sometimes we lose ourselves, or we lose our intent along the way. And thankfully for you, the harder you've worked, yes, the more money you've made, but the more you're in line with what you had hoped you'd do all along. How important is that financial freedom piece to you?
Financial freedom, I feel, is very important. You know, what you were kind of talking about before, I definitely call that purpose, and I call that being soul aligned. And I really feel that, you know, I think there's a stat out there, and it's like 87% of people are actually not really fully happy in their careers. And the majority have been, you know, when they've done this study or whatever, the majority said, or it came out, that it's because they don't feel a sense of purpose in their career. And so I really feel like it's so important to really be in alignment with what we're here to do. And, you know, that's a combination of what we really love and what we're naturally good at, and how can I combine those two things to create value in the world. And then as far as financial freedom, so this is what I love to talk about the most, because I see when a woman starts to earn a certain amount of money, the game changes for her, and the game changed for me. You know, money does not buy happiness, but it buys opportunity, it buys choice, and it buys you, you know, the opportunity to live life in a way that you really want to live life. But I always ask people, you know, whenever I'm teaching, like, what is the number to you? You know, what is your number that you would need to have in the bank to feel like you've achieved financial freedom or financial security? And everyone will put like maybe 1 million or 2 million. And I always share that doesn't actually matter, because you could lose that million. You could lose a bank. You might log into your bank account one day and that is just gone. Like, it's been happening actually in Silicon Valley. And so what happens one day, if you look in there and all of that hard-earned money is gone, you're starting back at square one. But true financial freedom and true financial security it's a skill set, right? Like, it's the knowing how to earn money for
rebuild it all over again.
And I can rebuild it all over again. And that is really what I teach inside of my programs, is when you know how to earn money for yourself, that is true financial freedom. No one can ever take that away from you. And no matter what happens in the future, you are always safe.
Yes. And safety looks different to different people. And for you, it needed to, I agree with everything you're saying, because some people are really content to, work 8 to 5 and earn a certain salary. And that is their happy place. And that's where they feel most secure. But also, you just want to be able to develop skill sets that allows you, if that company you're working for falls apart, you can go use those skill sets somewhere else, that you are a person who stands out in what you do, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
Well, I could talk to you all day. Thank you so much for being here. And I know we'll stay in touch. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate
you.
Thank you.